The tall, gangly thing?
Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by one of the players that's going to be competing at the mid-set finale. You may have seen him at one of the other Set 6 events we've had so far. It's Broccoli. Broccoli, thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing?
I'm happy to be here. I'm doing great.
So before we start, for anyone who may not be as familiar with who you are, why don't you just go ahead first and tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Broccoli. My name is Joven, like in real life. But I started playing in Set 1 all the way back. Played a shit ton of games in Set 1. I love TFT. Been playing ever since. Took a break for some sets. But really started kicking things off in Set 5 and really enjoying the game.
Now, I feel like a lot of people don't know all that much about you. You don't really stream all that much. You stream your PoE for events, but that's kind of about it. So let's just kind of give like the baseline of who Broccoli is. Let's just talk about your playstyle. How would you describe the way you play TFT?
The way I play TFT, I would say, is more from the Sox Rambling school of thought rather than like the Spencer Solus like type of school of thought, right? Like I like more tempo based play and more like build like your ragtag group of dudes, you know? You're you just throw in a random MF, fuck it, why not? Throwing throwing some random dudes, and then like just see what works and just like see what sticks and test out lots of different things. It's really enjoyable to me. That's how I like to play the game, and I think it helps me in some ways and it does not help me in other ways, which I'll get into later. But
Sure, yeah. So, like you said, you've been playing since Set 1, but it kind of feels like we've only seen your name pop up in the last few sets, especially on the competitive side. So let's kind of dig into that. I mean, what sparked that change that made you really dig more into the competitive side of TFT?
Yeah. I kind of just treated it like, because I'm a university student, so and also in engineering, so I'm like that's a lot of time for that. Uh, and so Set 1, Set 2, I didn't play Set 3. Uh, and I didn't play Set 4.5. So I was coming off of a break of 4.5 into Set 5. And the real thing that actually sparked it was actually the Dawnbringer Cup. I actually also broke up with my girlfriend around that time, so I had a lot more time. So the Dawnbringer Cup hit. I placed really well in the Dawnbringer Cup, and like the thing is, after it's like an insane dopamine rush. Like playing in tournaments, you just like you're like just it's just such a high. It's so much different than like winning. You play in a tournament, then you go win. You play on ladder, and it just feels completely worthless. And like you just like, and that really motivates me, right? It really motivated me to start actually giving my all in TFT. And here we are today, right? So I'm giving it my all more today than I have been in Set 4 and stuff. And honestly, in like Set 4 and Set 3, the competitive scene wasn't as like established in that way. It was a lot more ladder snapshot focused, and I really don't enjoy playing ladder as much as a player. So the tournaments existing has made me enjoy the game a lot more.
It's funny. Months ago, I had Spicy Appies on here, and he and I were talking about open brackets, and he brought up this point that he says everyone wants this story of little Jimmy coming in, coming out of nowhere, and winning the tournament. And he said like you almost never see that happen.
Yeah.
It sounds like though that is kind of what happened with you. You kind of did come out of nowhere and win the Dawnbringer Cup. Can you just kind of talk a little bit more about that experience of what it was like to actually compete? With no name to yourself against some of the biggest names in the scene.
I mean, everybody like knows me, right? Like I've always been like top 20, 30 challenger whenever I play the game, which is like it's like every I think like once it on, once it off was how I played back in the day, but I wasn't really like known as like a top player, and honestly, like even like the Dawnbringer Cup was like. It wasn't like that intense of a tournament, right? Like you go and you look at the final lobby I won, and it was me, GV, and Wang at the top, and then a bunch of like 5 Grandmaster players in the bottom. So I'm not like trying to hype myself up like I'm the fucking best tournament player in the world. I'm gonna shit on everybody. It's more so that it's an enjoyable experience to be able to perform in an event. is what I would say, and when it actually matters.
So you said before you're not as much of a fan of playing on ladder. So let's kind of talk about how do you see ladder? How do you treat ladder when it comes to just being part of of TFT and improvement?
I see ladder as what I do when I watch Netflix. I mean, it's kind of like ladder is like probably the most important representation of a player's skill, and like in general, it probably like it is the longest tournament form tournament, right? Like obviously, it's not the same as a tournament because in tournament you have 8 people who are all trying, and ladder 2 people are probably going to be inting, and like you have me chill there. I'm watching Netflix. I'm eating some chips, and I'm playing TFT just to have some fun. But like the way I see ladder is I just like to try stuff on ladder. There's certain times where I will try on ladder, but the thing is when I try on ladder, I feel like I just get angry.
Hmm.
So I don't do it that often. I plan to try on ladder before mid set. So I will be eating my words if I don't get like top 10. Is yeah, exactly.
No, wait, I just want to know when you're saying ladder, Netflix, chips, like that's figurative, right? You're not like actually watching Netflix on the other monitor while you're like playing on ladder, right?
No, typically I'm watching YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
There's not been a single game where I'm not watching YouTube on my second one. Usually, lots of times it's a Twitch stream too. Like I'll just be watching somebody else play TFT on my second monitor while I'm playing TFT. I think I might have ADHD.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So let me just ask this because to me, there's something that doesn't quite add up. How can you say both ladder is the best representation of a player's skill and also say when I play on ladder, I'm watching YouTube eating chips or watching a new show on Netflix? That just like that sounds crazy compared to an actual tournament format, no?
Yeah. I mean, for me, like ladder is definitely like it's just the largest sample size, right? Like even from a data perspective, the top players in tournaments, like you had a video where like you have the top players in tournaments, right? And the top players in tournaments are like people that are always in top 10 on ladder, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So even from that correlation, like you can kind of like see that it is a very, very good representation of people's skills when somebody is actually trying on ladder, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Another person I would talk about say is like Ramblin. Ramblin historically hasn't been that high on ladder typically. He's not like always hovering on rank 1, rank 2. He's always trying to stuff out on ladder, not really caring about his LP. But and same with Ramkev as well, I would say. And I think they're some of the best players. I think Ramblin's the best player, maybe even in the world. And I think Ramkev's also like top 10 best players. So
No, actually, yeah, let's bounce right off of that. Because one thing I want to talk about is kind of the approach that different people have to the game. I think one of the best examples is comparing someone like Ramblin to maybe a player like Soju, who Soju is the player who spams games, is almost always at the highest games played at the end of the set, actually at the beginning of the set as well. Ramblin, on the other hand, people talk about Ramblin as like a student of the game. He has a scholarly, academic approach to the game that seems very measured. So I kind of want to ask you on this spectrum of high volume of games versus high quality of games or high quality of studying, whatever it is, where do you kind of put yourself?
Probably somewhere in the middle. I would say that I approach in a pretty similar way to Ramble in terms of watching the game. Whereas like I watch lots of different streamers and when I actually watch people, I actually pay a lot of attention and try to analyze their game. Because I feel like it's a lot easier to focus on other people's game than my own. And then but I'm not like that in the same way where when I'm actually playing on ladder, lots of the time it's just spamming games because I'm like doing other stuff on the side, right? Like sometimes like I'm doing schoolwork as well, right? So like, yeah, I'd say I'm somewhere in the middle of that spectrum.
Now, we talked about it before. You competed both in the Zon Cup and the Piltover Cup. Great results at both of them. But there's been a lot of discussion lately. And one of the things people have been talking about is just tournament structure and format in general. There was a bit of controversy after the Zon Cup in particular. Ram Kev, who had really strong scores day one with a 3.17 average placement among the 6 games he played, and did not make it into day 2.
Ooh, that one's rough, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. And so I want to ask you, as someone who's competed in 3 different open bracket events, and actually just a large amount of events in the last 2 sets, how do you feel about the current format that we're using in competitive TFT?
It wouldn't. I think the only real issue with the Piltover Zone format is day 1, because 3 games in any circumstance is never going to be enough, right? But there's been a few interesting formats, right? So this I think this format's fine because it is an open bracket, right? So there's going to be compromises that have to be made, especially like in the last day of the where like there's 4 lobbies and there's like winners in each lobby. Like I think I logoed lobby on the last day. I got like a very like strong lobby to play against, but it's just like it kind of has to be like that because we don't want to wait 20 minutes in between games for reseeding and broadcast and all this other stuff. Where like it could be better, but we don't have time for that.
Sure.
But there's been other formats that have been very good. The best tournament format that I experienced and I've played in was actually the GSS. It was the GSS 3, the duo tournament. It went over like, was it 3 weeks or 2 weeks?
I think it was 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 weeks, and it was like it felt a lot more rewarding, that tournament, because like there was a larger sample size, and the way that the tournament was also scored was better, right? Because like it was like instead of like being 3 games, skip 3 games, it was like an entire like pool of points, right? And then the top in the pool of points were the people that qualified. Instead of like 3 games, it cut off 3 games.
I see. Yes. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So it seems like I mean, one of the things it sounds like you're kind of pointing at is this idea of formats that are stretched out over time, are rewarding consistency over the course of a patch, over the course of multiple patches, instead of, for instance, I think one of the most obvious things you can look at, Piltover Cup kind of happened right at the beginning where it felt like anyone that hit Mercs at the beginning of the game was just going to win the lobby. That's just kind of how it happened, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense. Yeah. If you have events that are structured around consistency over a period of time, you'll start to see those one tricks or the players who kind of got lucky on a patch, got to just reroll cat every game. They start to fall out of favor and kind of, normalize with their actual MMR. So I get that. That definitely makes sense.
Not only that, but also on ladder, whenever there's like tournaments that are like that, people try a lot harder on ladder. So you'll have like a week in between where people are actually like sweating on ladder, practicing for the tournament. When like after Zon Cup, every single game is a purple lobby. Right? You can't. It's hard to find like a full challenger lobby of people that are trying.
Wow. I had never thought of it like that. And you're right. That's actually a very, very interesting proposal, that if these events are over time, it actually gives an incentive for the ladder to actually be higher quality games.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely something we could, hope to see in the future. Now, let me kind of circle back to you, because one thing I kind of touched on it before. You have been, I think, something people don't know about you is you have been one of the best tournament performers in actually all of North America in TFT. And I'm just going to brag for you for just a little bit. Your results, just to kind of recap, are a first place finish at the Dawnbringer Cup in set 5, a 5th place finish, just barely missing out of a qualification spot for regionals in set 5.
Triple tiebreaker.
Because a tiebreaker, a 5th place finish at the Piltover Cup, which is a second in the final lobby, and a 13th place finish at the Zon Cup, which is a 4th place in the final lobby, which you already said was one of the hardest lobbies in the final day. You have also not always been the highest on the ladder compared to your results, and you tend to have results pretty often. So let's just kind of dig into that. What is it about you? What is it about your play style that allows you to actually be so consistent in tournament? Or, I mean, do you think it actually is just high roll?
I mean, it's definitely high roll to some extent. It's not high roll, but I would say not low roll is the big thing. Where like I haven't had an experience where I go into a tournament and I get absolutely just like blasted, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I would say for my play, I think my playstyle does help with that because I'm a pretty low resource player, uh, and the way I approach the game is this is kind of a fatal flaw that I have on ladder, which is the overestimation of the people in my lobby,
Hmm.
which often causes me to roll too much to try to be stronger than I need to be. But it turns out in tournament, everybody on average is a lot stronger. So that balances out, and then my playstyle becomes a lot more viable. Or like my fatal flaw becomes less fatal.
Interesting. It kind of ties into what you were talking about before about this idea that if ladder were higher quality or if these events were stretched out over time, the ladder on average would be stronger. And it does kind of sound like if you are maybe respecting your opponents too much, even when you are playing in these masters and mainly masters lobbies, then you're actually developing good habits for tournament, right? That sounds like that's what you're getting at.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, I mean, you should obviously scout your lobby and say, okay, I need to roll more, I need to roll less. But in if it was like an average, like you do one thing every game, then what I'm doing now is probably the better thing for tournament.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, on the other side of that would be a player who greeds too much and then is
Hmm.
punished in tournament and doesn't have the resources they typically have to play from a position of comfort, right? So it does
Yeah.
sound like if you had to choose one of those spots, it's probably better to be where you are. I
Mhm.
completely agree. Now, I want to move on because mid-set's coming up. Mid-set is coming up. You are one of the players competing there. I just want to know real quick, who are some of the players that you are either excited to play against, the players you're looking at that you think are going to pop off? Like who should people be looking for at mid-set?
Uh, I mean, for me personally, the player that I respect the most is Ramblin. I watch his stream a lot. See him in Twitch chats a lot. I think he's just the best player. I think the way he approaches the game is how I envy the way he approaches the game, and I wish to approach the game in a similar way. Right. Uh, Other than that, I think that Spencer is another player that like is just like wildly consistent. Uh, Whenever I see Spencer in my lobby, I start shaking. So he's another player I'd probably be watching.
I heard someone recently talk about this idea that one way to judge the strength of a player is actually how afraid of them you actually are. That if you load into a lobby, and who was it? I wish I had a good example for you of who it was. They had mentioned a certain player where they knew if this person, the example they gave was this person lose streaks until they start winning. But once they start winning, the game is over and they've already
Yeah.
won. I'm actually curious to know, like, is that something that you actually think about? Like, are there certain types of players that like you load into a lobby and think like, ah, shoot, like here we go, like this is going to be a tough one. Like I know you gave Spencer as an example. Are there any others like that?
There's a few actually. I actually think Kerbex is a really consistent player when he's not hyper turbo tilted. Terrible mental. Probably the worst mental in NA, but he will come back. I believe in Kermax. Uh, Another one is Solus. I'm not sure if it's because he's in like that. I think he's a very good player. He's definitely like I would put him in my top 15 for sure, maybe even higher than that. But the reason I hate playing with Solus is because he always gets Mercenary, and same with Setsuko. They're always playing Mercenary, and then I'm just like sad because I rotated into them on stage 4, and yeah.
Well, all right. So speaking of these big names, let's move on to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is the North American Power Rankings. The Don't Talk If You Don't Know Power Rankings second edition came out today. So I just wanted to kind of get your quick thoughts on what you thought of the Power Rankings that you saw.
Yeah, I have them pulled up right here. The power rankings are like there are two major schools of thought in TFT. I would say, like I said before, uh, and for me personally, I would obviously rank the one that I value higher to be higher ranked in my personal power rankings, right? So like I think that like I said, like the Ramblin' Socks way of playing TFT. I value that higher. And on this power rankings list, Milk and Spencer are 1 and 2, which are very, very much like execution-based TFT players, right? They're very strong econers, very, very strong. They by playing like they have an idea in mind, and they execute the idea perfectly, and they don't fuck up at all, right? That's the big thing. Whereas the other way to playing, there's a lot more fuck ups. But like you watch like Raptor Sox, they make a lot more mistakes. But their playstyle is more risk averse, which allows them to like come back from like they're a lot more low roll averse, I would say.
Yes.
But so like I would like agree with this rankings overall. Like it's a fine ranking, but it's not. It wouldn't be my personal ranking.
So I want to know this, and I hope you can do this kind of like coming from a place of humility, because I want to ask you honestly. I mean, you are not on this list. Personally, I did have you on my ballot. I'm just saying, I do think that you are probably deserving of top 15. And I do want to know, do you actually feel like you deserve a spot on this list? And if so, where would you actually put yourself?
Okay, I don't think I deserve a spot on this list, per se, because I don't think I've had the results on ladder to deserve a spot on this list. But I think I deserve a spot between probably like the 15th spot and the 20th spot right now, I would say. In terms of actually like how good I am, how good I think I am, and good I think I can be, I'm coming straight for the top, baby. Just trust me. Just give me the end of set 6.5, and I will be on this list.
All right. Yeah, we heard it here first. Now, you know what? I talked about this in the beginning. You are a kind of player that people see the results, but they almost never see you. They don't. You're hard to find online. You're not really on Twitter. You're on, you're in random Discord channels, I'm assuming. But you did start streaming a little bit. I know you were streaming last night. So I want to ask right here, can we expect any more Broccoli streams in the future? Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I mean, long story short, I've just been too lazy to stream. Because the thing is, if I stream, then I can't watch it from my second monitor. But I've realized that that's a good thing. So I'm gonna start streaming whenever I play the game because I think it's a good thing. I think I'll probably play better on stream. I think I'll be able to focus more. And I mean, I should like. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? Like TFT is a game where there isn't like giant prize pools. Right, so I should probably start if I want to actually like become a very good TFT player. I should probably start streaming, and I think I'm going to start streaming more consistently.
All right. Well, I'll make sure if anyone is interested in seeing Broccoli, I'll make sure to link that Twitch channel in the description below.
That'd be great. Yeah.
But actually, I do actually have one more thing. So this is the next section of this interview. Is I always turn things over to the community. If you guys are watching this and you want to have your question featured in the next video, make sure to follow me on Twitter. You'll see who I'm interviewing. You guys can ask a question there. But this question is actually coming from @Saltsby, who wanted to know: do you find yourself defaulting or leaning towards comfort comps with how you approach the game? And if so, what are those comps and why do you prefer them?
Lots of the time I actually do just like try random new stuff. So I'll just like, but like at the same time, like I do like I think this set I've actually had an Achilles heel of leaning really hard into the unit Fiora. Because the thing is, Fiora is great. She can use any item, she can put it in any comp, and it just works. It's beautiful. I love it. That's how I love TFT. My favorite unit of all time is Ashe from set 4. Because you could throw Ashe in any comp, throw in 2 Hunter, she'll pop off one item, and she'll just do DPS. I love units like that, and that's been my I think my Achilles heel this set, because a lot of the time I'll tunnel too hard on Fiora. Where I can pivot into something else. And I think that typically that is my main issue with comfort. In terms of like frontline, I typically will like swap front lines. I'll play like any front line, other back line, but that's been my main issue with carries probably, I would say.
All right, well, Broccoli, that's everything I have for you. But before we go, is there anything you'd like to shout out?
Thanks to everybody who's supported me. Thanks to my friends in the scene who have known since set 1, a few of them. And thanks to Mortdog and the TFT team for making a great game that I just love playing.
I agree with that. Absolutely. All right. Well, again, Broccoli, thank you for coming on. I had a great time talking to you. Thank you again. And for everyone watching, thank you all for watching all the way through this interview. If you guys want to see more stuff like this, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.